Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Cheating Tales Lab. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know, what part of the world are you watching from right now? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Fractured Foundations. Preston Holloway first met Veronica Durant at a charity gala in Boston. He was 32, a self-made man who had built his architectural firm from nothing after growing up in foster care. Veronica, 28 and dazzling, worked in public relations for a nonprofit organization. Her elegance and apparent compassion for underprivileged children caught Preston's attention, reminding him of his own challenging childhood. "I believe in second chances," Veronica had told him that night, her hazel eyes fixed on his. Everyone deserves someone who believes in them. Preston, who had always maintained his guard around others, felt something shift inside him. Within a year, they were married in a lavish ceremony funded primarily by Preston's success. Veronica's parents, Montgomery and Elaine Durant, were old money from Concord, reserved, judgmental, and initially cold toward Preston despite his accomplishments. "Self-made means self-taught," Montgomery had commented during their first meeting. "I hope you understand the standards our family maintains." The first 3 years of marriage seemed idyllic. Preston's firm expanded across New England, while Veronica transitioned to being a homemaker after the birth of their twins, Audrey and Camden. Preston worked long hours, but ensured weekends were dedicated to his family. He built a custom home in an exclusive neighborhood with a wing specifically designed for Montgomery and Elaine to stay comfortably during their visits. The fractures began in their 4th year of marriage. Preston noticed Veronica becoming increasingly irritable around him while being perfectly pleasant when others were present. Arguments escalated over trivial matters. She began documenting their disagreements on her phone, something Preston found odd but dismissed as her way of processing conflict. During a dinner with the Durants, Veronica burst into tears after Preston accidentally knocked over a wine glass. "It's okay, it happens," Preston said, quickly cleaning the spill. "It's not okay," Veronica whispered, her voice trembling. "Nothing's ever okay anymore." The Durants exchanged concerned glances. Later that evening, Preston overheard Montgomery confronting Veronica in the kitchen. "Is there something you're not telling us about, Preston?" Montgomery asked. "I can handle it, Dad," Veronica replied. "For the children's sake." Preston stepped into the kitchen, confused. "Handle what exactly?" The three of them froze in uncomfortable silence before Veronica smiled tightly. "Just some renovation plans for the house, darling. Dad thinks I'm taking on too much." That night marked the beginning of Preston's 12-year nightmare. Chapter 2. Systematic Destruction. Over the next year, Preston noticed a pattern. After every disagreement, Veronica would visit her parents alone with the children. He'd receive cold, formal texts from Montgomery and Elaine canceling planned family gatherings. Social invitations dwindled. Business associates began treating him differently. Conversations would halt when he entered rooms. Sympathetic glances followed him at industry events. When the twins turned 5, Preston suggested enrolling them in the prestigious Whitehall Academy. "Absolutely not," Veronica snapped. "They need to be somewhere I can reach them quickly if necessary." "If necessary for what?" Preston asked. Veronica's eyes darted away. "You know what I mean." During their 6th anniversary dinner at an upscale restaurant, Preston finally confronted her. "What exactly have you been telling people about me?" Veronica's expression hardened. "Only the truth, Preston. That you're not the man everyone thinks you are." "And what man is that?" "The controlled one. The one who doesn't leave bruises where people can see them." Preston felt the blood drain from his face. "That's insane. I've never laid a hand on you." "My parents have photographs that suggest otherwise," Veronica replied calmly. "Photographs I've been documenting for years, along with witness statements from the housekeeper and my therapist. Would you like to see the file my father's attorney has prepared?" Preston's world crumbled around him. "Why would you fabricate something so destructive?" "I haven't fabricated anything," Veronica responded, her voice steady. "I've simply documented our reality. If you contest anything, consider what that would do to your business reputation. Consider the children." That night, Preston slept in his office, mind racing. The next morning, he discovered Veronica had emptied their joint accounts of over $300,000. When confronted, she smiled coldly. "Insurance policy," she explained. "Cross me, and everything, including custody, gets very, very ugly." For the next 6 years, Preston lived as a prisoner in his own life. The Durants treated him with barely concealed contempt. The twins, now influenced by years of their mother's narrative, began flinching when he moved too quickly. Business associates kept interactions strictly professional. Preston maintained a meticulous record of his own, screenshots of threatening texts from Veronica, security camera footage from their home, receipts proving his whereabouts during times Veronica claimed abuse occurred. Daddy has bad days. He once overheard Veronica telling Camden when the boy was 8. We just need to be very careful not to upset him. Preston fought back tears as he watched his son's expression shift to fear. The systematic destruction of his character was nearly complete. Chapter 3: The Unraveling Thread. When the twins turned 11, Veronica announced she wanted a third child. Preston was stunned. Why would we bring another child into this nightmare you've created? He asked. The house feels empty with the twins at school all day, she replied. Besides, larger families appear more stable to outsiders. Preston refused. Their arguments escalated, with Veronica threatening to tell the children the full truth about their father. During this period, Preston noticed Veronica taking frequent spa weekends. Credit card statements showed charges at luxury hotels only 90 minutes from their home. Strange for someone who claimed to need isolation to recover. On the twins' 12th birthday, Montgomery and Elaine Durant arrived for the celebration looking unusually uncomfortable. During dinner, Elaine barely looked at Veronica, while Montgomery studied Preston with a puzzled expression. After the children opened presents, Montgomery asked Preston to join him in the study. I need to understand something, Montgomery said once they were alone. Veronica claims you've threatened to destroy her if she ever leaves. Preston laughed bitterly. Is that the latest version? Interesting evolution from her original story. Original story? Montgomery's brow furrowed. Yes, the one where I apparently abuse her but leave no evidence except the photographs she's manipulated and the testimony she's coerced. Preston met his father-in-law's eyes directly. 12 years, Montgomery. 12 years I've lived under this cloud because she knows a messy divorce would impact my business and potentially separate me from my children. Montgomery seemed genuinely confused. Veronica told us you had a violent temper behind closed doors, that you controlled her finances, monitored her whereabouts. I think you've confused which spouse does what in this marriage, Preston replied, unlocking his phone. Here are the banking records showing she drained our accounts 6 years ago. Here are texts where she threatens to destroy me if I don't comply with her demands. Here's security footage from our home showing her coaching the children on how to act afraid around me. Montgomery's face paled as he scrolled through Preston's evidence. This contradicts everything. I've been building my defense for years, waiting for the day she finally files for divorce and tries to take everything, including my children. Preston's voice broke. What I don't understand is why. We had a good life. I gave her everything. Montgomery sat heavily in an armchair. There's something you should know. Elaine and I recently ran into Vincent Thorne at the Berkshire Country Club. Who? An old boyfriend of Veronica's from college. He mentioned being surprised to see us, since he thought we'd disowned Veronica after the incident. Preston leaned forward. What incident? According to Vincent, Veronica falsely accused him of assault during their senior year when he tried to end their relationship. The university investigation cleared him, but not before his reputation was severely damaged. Vincent showed us records from the university ethics committee. Preston felt a chill. And you decided to verify his claims? Montgomery nodded slowly. We hired a private investigator. What we discovered? He paused, visibly distressed. Preston, I believe we've been manipulated by our daughter for years. And I suspect you're not the first. As Montgomery spoke, the study door opened. Elaine stood there, face ashen. She's gone, she whispered. Veronica took her overnight bag and left. She wouldn't say where she was going, just that she needed space. Preston checked his phone and found a text from an unknown number. I know what you're doing. You'll regret this. The thread that would unravel Veronica's web of lies had finally been pulled. Chapter 4: Allies from Ashes. The 48 hours following Veronica's departure were chaos. She didn't return home, ignoring calls from both Preston and her parents. The twins, confused and frightened, bombarded Preston with questions he couldn't answer. On the second evening, as Preston prepared dinner, 12-year-old Audrey approached him cautiously. Is Mom gone because you found out about Uncle Nico? she asked. Preston carefully set down the knife he was using. Who is Uncle Nico? Audrey fidgeted with her sleeve. Mom's special friend. She takes us to his lake house sometimes when you're on business trips. We're not supposed to tell you because she says you'd get really angry. Preston maintained a neutral expression despite his racing heart. How long has Mom had this special friend? Forever, Audrey shrugged. Since we were little. Camden and I have our own room at his house. That night, after the children were asleep, Preston called Montgomery and Elaine to his home. They arrived looking haggard, as though they'd aged years and days. Veronica has been systematically deceiving all of us, Preston explained, relaying Audrey's revelation. I need to know if you're with me or against me going forward, because what comes next won't be pretty. Montgomery exchanged glances with his wife before responding. We've spent 12 years believing our daughter and condemning you. The private investigator has uncovered disturbing patterns in Veronica's past. Whatever support you need, you have it. Elaine, usually reserved, reached for Preston's hand. We failed you as family. We should have questioned, should have seen the inconsistencies. Tell me about this investigator, Preston said. The PI was Darius Temple, ex-military and renowned for his thoroughness. Montgomery arranged a meeting the next morning at Preston's office. Darius arrived punctually, carrying a thick file. Mr. Durant hired me to investigate his daughter, which is unusual in itself, Darius began. What I found suggests a pattern of fabricated allegations stretching back to high school. He laid out documents chronologically, school records showing Veronica had accused a teacher of inappropriate behavior, later disproven. The college incident with Vincent Thorne, an employer she claimed had sexually harassed her after she was fired for performance issues. The most concerning discovery is Nicholas Castillo, Darius continued, placing photographs on the desk. They showed Veronica with a dark-haired man, looking intimate at various locations. He's a real estate developer from Providence. They've been involved for approximately 8 years, based on my investigation. Preston studied the images. Some included the twins, looking comfortable and familiar with Castillo. My children have a room at his house. Darius nodded. Mr. Castillo owns a lake house in the Berkshires. Property records show he added a bedroom wing 4 years ago. 8 years, Preston repeated numbly. She's been living a double life for 8 years while painting me as an abuser. There's more. Darius hesitated. Financial records suggest she's been funneling money to offshore accounts. The amounts align with what you claim she took from your joint accounts, plus regular transfers since then. From what source? Preston asked. That's where it gets interesting. The transfers originate from Castillo Developments, labeled as consulting fees. Montgomery interjected. We need to find her before she disappears permanently with those funds. I don't think she's running, Preston said slowly. This is too established, too comfortable. She thinks she's untouchable. He turned to Darius. I need surveillance on Castillo's properties. When she surfaces, I want to know. What's your endgame here? Darius asked. Preston's expression hardened. First, protecting my children. Second, ensuring Veronica and everyone who helped her maintain this fiction face consequences. No settlements, no quiet divorces. Total exposure. That strategy could backfire, Montgomery warned. Veronica might double down on her accusations. Let her, Preston replied. I've been documenting everything for years. The difference now is I have witnesses who've seen both sides, you too. Elaine, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. The Gardner Charity Ball is next weekend. Veronica never misses it. It's where she maintains her social standing. If she's planning to continue her narrative, she'll appear there, likely with some explanation for her absence. Preston nodded. Then we'll be ready. But first, I need to protect my children from what's coming. Chapter 5. Truth and Testimony. 3 days later, Darius confirmed Veronica had been staying at Castillo's lake house. Her credit card had been used at a boutique in the nearby town, purchasing an evening gown, confirming Elaine's prediction about the Gardner Charity Ball. Preston arranged an emergency therapy session for the twins with Dr. Lydia Winters, a child psychologist specializing in family trauma. Initially hesitant to involve the children, he recognized they needed professional support to process the unfolding situation. I don't want them used as pawns, Preston explained to Dr. Winters before the session. But they've been living with manufactured fear for years. They deserve truth appropriate to their age. Dr. Winters conducted separate sessions with each child, then met with Preston, Montgomery, and Elaine afterward. Both children describe a significant discrepancy between their mother's characterization of you and their actual experiences, Dr. Winters explained. They've been coached to appear uncomfortable around you in certain situations, especially when their mother or grandparents are present. Coached how? Elaine asked, voice trembling. According to Camden, Mom says we need to act scared when Daddy raises his voice or moves too fast, even though he never hurts us. She says it's to keep everyone safe. This suggests deliberate manipulation of the children's behavior to support a false narrative. Preston covered his face. My own children. They're confused, not complicit, Dr. Winters clarified. They believe they were protecting the family unit. Children trust their parents implicitly. What about this Uncle Nico? Montgomery asked. Both children speak positively about him. They've been told he's their mother's special friend, who makes her happy when Daddy is busy working. Dr. Winters' expression was grave. This relationship has been normalized for them over years. I need custody, Preston said firmly. Immediately. Based on what I've observed, I'll recommend temporary emergency custody to you while the situation stabilizes, Dr. Winters agreed. The children need consistency and truth right now, not more upheaval. That afternoon, Preston met with Talia Rivero, a formidable divorce attorney recommended by Darius. I don't want just divorce, Preston clarified. I want full custody and accountability for 12 years of defamation and psychological abuse. Talia reviewed the evidence compilations, Preston's records, Darius's investigation, Dr. Winters' preliminary assessment, and written statements from Montgomery and Elaine renouncing their previous claims about Preston's character. This is the most comprehensively documented case of spousal defamation I've seen, Talia remarked. Typically, these situations lack concrete evidence or reliable witnesses. You have both. Will it be enough? Preston asked. To secure emergency custody? Absolutely. For the divorce? It positions you advantageously. For criminal charges of defamation and fraud? That depends on the prosecutor's appetite. Talia organized the files methodically. What concerns me is timing. If Veronica realizes you're building this case, she'll either escalate the allegations or disappear with the children, Preston finished. That's why we need to move now. She believes I'm still cowed, still afraid of her threats. The pieces were set in motion. Dr. Winters filed her recommendation for emergency custody. Talia prepared the legal documents. Montgomery and Elaine provided sworn affidavits detailing how Veronica had systematically misled them about Preston for years. The night before the Gardner charity ball, Preston received a text from Veronica. Coming home tomorrow. We need to discuss your recent behavior with my parents. The children and I deserve better. She's maintaining the fiction, Preston told Montgomery over the phone. She has no idea you've seen through her. What if she doesn't bring the children back? Montgomery worried. Darius has confirmed they're with her at the lake house. If she doesn't return with them, we'll implement the emergency custody order immediately. The next morning, as Preston finalized preparations with Talia, his security system alerted him to Veronica's arrival. She entered alone, dressed immaculately as always, her expression coldly composed. Where are the children? Preston asked immediately. With Nico, she replied, watching for his reaction. I thought we should talk privately first. Preston maintained a neutral expression despite the confirmation of his children's location. About what? My parents have been acting strangely, not answering my calls properly. She studied him carefully. What exactly did you tell them? Nothing they hadn't already discovered for themselves. Preston held her gaze. How long did you think you could maintain two separate lives, Veronica? Her composure wavered briefly before recovering. I don't know what you mean. Nicholas Castillo. Your consulting fees. The room addition for my children at his lake house. Preston stepped closer. 8 years of systematically destroying my character to cover your infidelity. Veronica's eyes hardened. Prove it. I already have. To your parents, to a child psychologist, to my attorney. Preston watched realization dawn on her face. Your parents hired a private investigator weeks ago. They know everything, Veronica. Everything. For the first time in their marriage, Preston saw genuine fear in Veronica's eyes. You're bluffing, she whispered. The emergency custody hearing is scheduled for Monday morning. Dr. Winters has already filed her recommendation based on her sessions with Audrey and Camden. Preston pulled out his phone. Should I call Montgomery so he can tell you himself how disgusted he is with what you've done? Or would you prefer to hear from Talia Rivero about the evidence we've compiled? Veronica's control cracked completely. You can't take my children. I'm their mother. A mother who used them as props in her elaborate deception, Preston replied. Bring them home today, Veronica. Now, or the police will accompany me to Castillo's lake house with the emergency order. Veronica's face contorted with rage. You'll regret this. I'll tell everyone what you really are. What I really am, Preston said softly, is something you never bothered to discover. A man who's been documenting your lies for 6 years, waiting for exactly this moment. Chapter 6. Courtroom Confrontation. Monday morning arrived with thunderstorms that matched the atmosphere in courtroom 3B of the Suffolk County Family Court. Preston sat beside Talia, watching as Veronica entered with her attorney, Solomon Pierce, a divorce lawyer notorious for scorched earth tactics against wealthy spouses. The children were temporarily staying with Montgomery and Elaine under supervised conditions, as agreed in the emergency hearing 2 days prior. Veronica had surrendered them surprisingly easily after her confrontation with Preston, perhaps realizing the precariousness of her position. Judge Winifred Hammond, a veteran of family court known for her no-nonsense approach, reviewed the preliminary filings with a furrowed brow. This is an unusual situation, she noted. Mrs. Holloway has submitted serious allegations of domestic abuse spanning years, while Mr. Holloway contends these claims are fabricated to cover infidelity and financial misconduct. Before we proceed with testimony, I want to be clear. I will not tolerate theatrics or character assassination without substantial evidence. Solomon Pierce rose first. Your Honor, my client has endured years of psychological control and intimidation. The recent involvement of her parents in supporting her husband's claims results from his manipulation. Mrs. Holloway has protected her children from the full truth of their home environment out of concern for their emotional well-being and the documentation of this alleged abuse. Judge Hammond inquired. My client has maintained records of incidents and sought therapy consistently. Her children's behavioral responses to their father speak volumes. Talia countered immediately. Your Honor, we have evidence that any behavioral responses were deliberately coached by Mrs. Holloway, as testified by the children themselves to Dr. Winters. Furthermore, Mrs. Holloway's parents now attest that she systematically misled them about Mr. Holloway's character for years. Judge Hammond turned to Pierce. I see allegations, but minimal documentation in your filing, Counselor. Where is this evidence you reference? Pierce hesitated slightly. My client has been under considerable duress. Some documentation is still being compiled. Convenient, Talia remarked. Meanwhile, we have submitted over 300 pages of documented evidence, including financial records showing Mrs. Holloway has been receiving regular payments from her paramour for years. The morning proceeded with Talia methodically presenting Preston's evidence. Security footage showing Veronica coaching the children before Montgomery and Elaine's visits. Text messages where she explicitly threatened to destroy Preston if he challenged her. Financial records of the drained accounts and subsequent offshore transfers. When Montgomery Durant took the stand as a witness for Preston, the courtroom tensed. Veronica visibly paled. Mr. Durant, Talia began. Please describe your understanding of your son-in-law's character before recent events. Montgomery looked directly at Veronica as he answered. I believe Preston was a man with a controlled public face who privately terrorized my daughter. I believe this because Veronica told us so, showed us photographs of bruises she claimed he inflicted, and we witnessed the children acting fearful around him. What changed your perception? A chance encounter with Vincent Thorne, who described being falsely accused by Veronica in college. This led us to hire an investigator who uncovered a pattern of similar false accusations throughout Veronica's life, along with evidence of her 8-year relationship with Nicholas Castillo. Pierce objected vigorously, claiming hearsay, but Judge Hammond overruled when Talia produced the University Ethics Committee findings and Darius Temple's comprehensive report. When Elaine Durant testified about witnessing Veronica instructing the twins to act more nervous when Daddy raises his voice, Solomon Pierce's strategy shifted visibly. During a brief recess, Pierce approached Talia. We should discuss settlement terms. My client isn't interested in settlement, Talia replied. He wants full custody and complete documentation of the fabricated abuse allegations on record. That's unnecessarily punitive, Pierce argued. Mrs. Holloway is willing to accept shared custody and minimal support. After 12 years of systematic character assassination? I don't think so. Talia gathered her notes. We haven't even presented our main witness yet. When court reconvened, Talia called Nicholas Castillo to the stand. The courtroom doors opened, and a man entered, but it wasn't the dark-haired figure from the surveillance photos. This man was older, graying, with a distinguished bearing. Veronica half rose from her seat. That's not Nico, she blurted. Please state your name for the record, Judge Hammond instructed. Dominic Castillo Sr., the man replied. Father of Nicholas Castillo and chairman of Castillo Developments. Veronica sank back, face ashen. Pierce whispered urgently to her. Mr. Castillo, Talia began. Please explain your relationship to this case. I was contacted by Mr. Temple during his investigation. My son Nicholas has been involved with Veronica Holloway for approximately 8 years. When I learned the nature of their relationship, particularly that Mrs. Holloway was falsely accusing her husband of abuse to justify her infidelity, I was deeply disturbed. Why have you chosen to testify today? Dominic's expression hardened. Because Mrs. Holloway didn't just deceive her husband and parents. She manipulated my son and, by extension, my company. The consulting fees she received were authorized by Nicholas without board approval, potentially exposing our company to liability. Additionally, having reviewed the evidence Mr. Temple collected, I cannot in good conscience allow such deliberate character assassination to continue. Objection, Pierce shouted. Mr. Castillo cannot testify to his son's relationship or intentions. I can, however, testify to corporate records, Dominic countered, producing a folder. These are the unauthorized payment authorizations Nicholas processed, totaling over $750,000 over 8 years. Each coincides with periods when Mrs. Holloway claimed to need funds to escape her allegedly abusive husband. Judge Hammond accepted the records into evidence, reviewing them with increasing concern. Mr. Castillo, Talia continued, did your son know about Mrs. Holloway's claims regarding her husband? Yes. Nicholas believed he was helping an abuse victim escape a dangerous situation. When I showed him the evidence Mr. Temple collected, he was devastated to realize he'd been used to finance what appears to be an elaborate fraud. Veronica lunged to her feet. He's lying. Nico knows everything. He loves me. Mrs. Holloway, control yourself. Judge Hammond ordered. Dominic continued calmly. My son is currently in voluntary rehabilitation for alcohol dependency, which Mrs. Holloway encouraged to make him more malleable. He authorized payments while impaired. The final nail came when Talia submitted recordings from the security system in Preston's home office. Veronica on the phone with Nicholas, explicitly discussing how to manipulate Preston's parents. They'll believe anything if I cry hard enough. Preston won't contest it. He's too afraid of losing his reputation. By day's end, Judge Hammond's ruling was unequivocal. Temporary full custody to Preston, with supervised visitation for Veronica, pending full psychological evaluation. Additionally, she recommended the district attorney review the evidence for potential criminal charges of fraud and defamation. As Preston left the courtroom, Solomon Pierce avoided eye contact. Veronica, however, stared at Preston with naked hatred. This isn't over, she hissed as he passed. You're right, Preston replied quietly. It's just beginning. Chapter 7. Calculated Consequences. The weeks following the custody hearing transformed Preston's life. With the twins legally in his care, he focused on creating stability amid the chaos. Dr. Winters continued regular sessions with Audrey and Camden, helping them process the complex truths about their parents' relationship. They're resilient, Dr. Winters assured Preston during a consultation. But they need consistent honesty now. No more protected truths or comfortable fictions. Preston took a month-long leave from his firm to be fully present for his children. They moved temporarily to a lakeside rental property, away from the home, filled with difficult memories. During this period, the twins gradually relaxed around their father, no longer performing the fearful behaviors they'd been coached to display. One evening, as they prepared dinner together, Camden asked the question Preston had been dreading. Are you going to forgive Mom? Preston measured his response carefully. I can't forgive the harm she caused, Camden. But I'll always respect that she's your mother. What about Grandpa and Grandma Durant? Audrey questioned. They believed Mom's lies too. They were deceived, just like we all were, Preston explained. They're trying to make amends. The conversation reminded Preston that while the immediate legal battle had been won, the broader war for justice remained. Veronica faced no criminal charges yet, despite Judge Hammond's recommendation to the district attorney. Nicholas Castillo had avoided consequences by entering rehabilitation. The system seemed poised to let them escape with minimal repercussions. During this period of reflection, Preston received an unexpected visitor at the lake house. Darius Temple, the investigator. I thought you'd want to know, Darius said, sitting on the deck overlooking the water. Veronica has been meeting with journalist Mara Whitlock from the Boston Standard. Word is she's planning a tell-all piece portraying herself as the victim of a vindictive husband and manipulative lover. Preston's jaw tightened. Of course she is. The narrative always bends to make her the protagonist. There's more, Darius continued. Nicholas Castillo has completed his 30-day rehab program and has been reinstated at his family company, apparently with his father's blessing. The story being circulated is that he was taken advantage of by a manipulative woman while struggling with dependency issues. So everyone walks away unscathed, Preston observed bitterly. Veronica spins a new victim narrative, Nicholas blames his addiction, and I'm left with the wreckage. Darius studied Preston carefully. What exactly do you want, Mr. Holloway? Legal victory? Public vindication? Personal revenge? Justice, Preston replied simply. True consequences proportional to the harm caused. 12 years of my life were poisoned. My relationship with my children was deliberately damaged. My professional reputation was quietly undermined. No one pays for that in our system. Not through conventional channels, perhaps, Darius agreed. But justice takes many forms. That conversation catalyzed Preston's transformation from reactive victim to strategic architect of consequences. He recognized that the system would not deliver the justice he sought. He would need to design it himself. Preston's first move was subtle. He contacted Lila Montgomery, owner of Montgomery Public Relations and bitter professional rival to Mara Whitlock. He provided Lila with copies of all evidence from the custody hearing, plus additional materials that hadn't been submitted to court. Notably, recordings of Veronica coaching the children to act afraid. The Boston Standard is planning a sympathetic piece on Veronica, Preston explained. I'm offering you the exclusive on the complete, documented truth, with one condition. Which is? Lila asked. It runs the same day as Whitlock's piece. The timing was precision engineered. When Mara Whitlock's sympathetic profile of Veronica as a survivor reclaiming her narrative appeared, it was immediately overshadowed by Lila Montgomery's devastating exposé, complete with transcripts, photographs, and QR codes linking to audio recordings of Veronica's manipulation. The public reaction was swift and merciless. Veronica's carefully crafted image crumbled under the weight of irrefutable evidence. The nonprofit organizations she had aligned herself with quietly distanced themselves. Social invitations evaporated. Her therapist, implicated in providing false documentation of abuse, faced an ethics investigation. For Nicholas Castillo, Preston's approach was more direct. Using financial records provided by Dominic Castillo Sr., Preston filed a civil suit against Nicholas personally for the misappropriated consulting fees paid to Veronica. The suit didn't seek damages from Castillo Developments, only from Nicholas himself, effectively preventing his father from shielding him with corporate resources. You can settle this quietly, Preston offered during mediation. Return the $750,000 plus interest, and publicly acknowledge your role in enabling Veronica's deception. Nicholas, newly sober and desperate to preserve his rehabilitated image, agreed readily. His public statement acknowledging his grave error in judgment effectively ended any possibility of Veronica maintaining her victim narrative. To rebuild his own reputation, Nicholas had to explicitly confirm hers was built on lies. Most carefully calculated was Preston's approach to Montgomery and Elaine Durant. While they had ultimately supported him in court, Preston couldn't forget the 12 years they'd treated him with contempt based solely on their daughter's claims. I appreciate your testimonies, Preston told them during a direct conversation. But your willingness to believe the worst about me for 12 years without ever asking for my side speaks to a fundamental character flaw. We've apologized repeatedly, Montgomery protested. We were deceived by our own daughter. Yes, you were, Preston agreed. And I don't doubt your current sincerity. But consider this. Had you questioned Veronica even once in those 12 years, demanded actual evidence, spotted the inconsistencies, my children might have been spared years of psychological manipulation. The consequence Preston designed for the Durants was subtle but devastating. Limited, supervised access to their grandchildren. You'll see Audrey and Camden regularly, Preston explained. But always with me present, always in my home. Never alone, never overnight visits, until they're 18 and can decide for themselves. That's unnecessarily punitive, Elaine argued tearfully. No, Preston corrected. It's appropriately cautious given your demonstrated judgment. You failed to protect my children from Veronica's manipulation for years. Why would I trust you now without supervision? For Veronica herself, Preston's most ruthless calculation involved financial consequences. After the divorce was finalized with Preston receiving full custody, he systematically dismantled Veronica's financial safety nets. The offshore accounts were frozen through legal action. The divorce settlement provided only the minimum required by law, with Veronica required to pay child support based on her previous consulting income. When Veronica sought reconciliation 6 months later, claiming to have grown from the experience, Preston's response was clinical. I'm not interested in your growth. I'm interested in my children's well-being, which requires your continued legal and financial accountability. Preston's rebuild of his life was methodical. He sold their family home, designing and constructing a new residence that contained no echoes of Veronica. He expanded his architectural firm, leveraging the publicity from the case to attract clients who appreciated his resilience. Most importantly, he created a transparent, honest relationship with Audrey and Camden, never disparaging their mother, but never shielding them from age-appropriate truth. Everyone makes choices, he told them. The measure of a person is whether they accept the consequences of those choices or try to shift them onto others. Chapter 8. The Aftermath. 2 years after the custody hearing, Preston's carefully reconstructed life had found stability. Audrey and Camden, now 14, had adjusted to their new reality with the resilience of youth. Regular therapy had helped them process their complicated feelings about their mother, who maintained court-mandated visitation but remained bitter and manipulative during their limited time together. Mom says you're punishing her by turning us against her, Audrey reported after a visitation. She says when we're 18, we'll understand her side better. Your relationship with your mother is yours to define, Preston responded carefully. My only concern is that it remains healthy for you. Preston had rebuilt his professional reputation, with his architectural firm now expanded to include offices in New York and Chicago. The publicity from Veronica's exposed deception had initially threatened his business, but his transparency about the situation ultimately attracted clients who appreciated his integrity and resilience. The carefully calibrated consequences Preston had engineered continued to unfold. Nicholas Castillo, though reinstated at his family company, had been relegated to a symbolic role with minimal authority, his father's way of maintaining family appearances while acknowledging his son's demonstrated poor judgment. Montgomery and Elaine Durant had adhered to Preston's strict boundaries regarding their grandchildren, hoping their consistent presence would eventually earn greater trust. Preston maintained polite but distant relations with them, never allowing them to forget their role in enabling Veronica's years of deception. For Veronica herself, the aftermath had been particularly harsh. The exposé had destroyed her social standing. Former friends avoided her. Charitable organizations removed her from their boards. Her attempts to rebuild through sympathetic media outlets repeatedly failed as journalists uncovered more instances of her pattern of false accusations throughout her life. During this period of relative calm, Preston received an unexpected call from Solomon Pierce, Veronica's former attorney. I'm not representing Mrs. Holloway anymore, Pierce clarified immediately. I'm calling because something concerning has come to my attention that affects your children. They met at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop in Cambridge. Pierce looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with his coffee cup. After our court case, I did some soul-searching about my role in enabling clients like your ex-wife, Pierce began. I've since declined similar cases where the evidence seemed manufactured. But Veronica has found new representation, Gabrielle Haddad. Preston recognized the name, a notorious attorney known for scorched earth tactics in custody battles. Veronica has been meeting with Audrey without your knowledge, Pierce continued, using her court-mandated visitation to essentially groom your daughter to make allegations against you once she turns 16. Preston felt cold dread. What kind of allegations? The same as before, but coming from Audrey directly would carry more weight. Haddad specializes in leveraging teenage testimony to overturn custody arrangements. Pierce slid a thumb drive across the table. These are recordings from Veronica's phone that my paralegal accidentally received when gathering her file for transfer. I'm violating several ethical guidelines by sharing this, but I have teenage children myself. I couldn't live with the knowledge that another child was being manipulated this way. Preston had the recordings authenticated before listening. They revealed Veronica systematically coaching Audrey to misinterpret Preston's actions, planting seeds of doubt and fear, promising that, once you're 16, you can choose to live with me, and Camden will follow. Rather than confronting Audrey directly, Preston arranged for the recordings to be played during her next session with Dr. Winters, with him present. Audrey's reaction moved from denial to anger to devastation as she heard her mother's manipulation laid bare. I thought she was just sad and missed us, she sobbed. But she's still trying to use me. This incident marked a turning point in Preston's relationship with his children. The transparent handling of Veronica's attempted manipulation deepened their trust in him. It also necessitated legal action. Preston filed for modification of Veronica's visitation rights, requesting supervision based on evidence of parental alienation. Judge Hammond, still presiding over their case, reviewed the recordings with visible disgust. Mrs. Holloway, this court gave you the benefit of doubt regarding redemption. These recordings demonstrate continued psychological manipulation of your children. Veronica's visitation was restricted to twice-monthly supervised sessions at a family center. Her public response was predictably self-victimizing. A tearful interview claiming Preston was using his wealth and influence to separate a mother from her children. The interview backfired spectacularly when 16-year-old Camden, without Preston's knowledge or permission, contacted the news outlet with his own statement. My mother has been lying about my father my entire life. I have the evidence. Would you like to see it? The outlet declined to air Camden's rebuttal, but his willingness to publicly defend his father marked a significant shift in the family dynamic. That evening, Preston found Camden sitting alone on their home's back deck. You didn't have to do that, Preston said, joining him. Yes, I did, Camden replied with unexpected maturity. Someone needs to stand up to her lies. Standing up for truth is important, Preston agreed, but not at the cost of your own peace. Camden studied his father carefully. How did you do it? 12 years of her lies, and you never broke, never became what she accused you of being. Preston considered the question thoughtfully. I knew who I was. No one else's narrative could change that core truth. Even when everyone believed her. Even then, Preston placed a hand on his son's shoulder. The people who matter most can see truth eventually, if you live it consistently. As the twins entered high school, Preston watched them develop their own identities separate from the trauma of their early years. Audrey discovered a passion for environmental architecture, often joining Preston at his office to learn the business. Camden showed talent in digital media, creating compelling visual stories. On their 16th birthday, Preston gave them each letters he had written years earlier, during the darkest period of Veronica's manipulation, expressing his unwavering love and hopes for their future. The letters, never sent but preserved as testament to his constancy, moved both teenagers to tears. You never gave up on us, Audrey said, embracing him. Even when we were taught to fear you. You were always worth fighting for, Preston replied simply. That evening, as Preston watched his children celebrate with friends, he reflected on the calculated consequences he had engineered for those who had wronged him. Each had been precisely calibrated to the harm caused, without excess but without mercy. Justice, Preston had discovered, was not about forgiveness. It was about restoration of truth and prevention of future harm. Chapter 9. Unyielding Resolution. 5 years after the custody battle that exposed Veronica's web of lies, Preston stood in his office overlooking Boston Harbor, contemplating how thoroughly his life had transformed. His architectural firm had become one of the most prestigious in New England, known for innovative, sustainable designs. The twins, now 19 and in their second year of college, had grown into confident young adults despite, or perhaps because of, the crucible of their unusual childhood. The calculated consequences Preston had engineered for those who betrayed him had played out exactly as designed. Nicholas Castillo had never recovered his standing in his family's company, eventually relocating to Seattle to escape the shadow of scandal. Montgomery and Elaine Durant had maintained their supervised relationship with the twins, never regaining the privileged access they once took for granted. Veronica herself had experienced the most dramatic downfall. After losing her supervised visitation rights entirely due to continued manipulation attempts, she had moved to Providence permanently to live with Nicholas. Their relationship deteriorated within a year, with Nicholas finally recognizing the pattern of manipulation that Preston had endured for 12 years. Left without financial support from either Preston or Nicholas, Veronica was forced to find employment for the first time in decades. Her attempts to rebuild her social standing repeatedly failed as her history of false accusations followed her. The carefully constructed identity she had maintained, of the gracious, charitable socialite, had been permanently shattered. Preston's intercom buzzed, interrupting his reflection. "Mr. Holloway, Audrey and Camden are here to see you." The twins entered looking uncharacteristically serious. College had matured them. Audrey studying environmental engineering at MIT, Camden pursuing digital media at NYU. They visited regularly, but rarely together mid-semester. "What brings you both here?" Preston asked, embracing each of them. "We need to talk about Mom," Camden began directly. Preston maintained a neutral expression. "What about her?" Audrey took over. "She contacted us both last week. She's been diagnosed with early-onset Parkinson's. She's asking for financial help with treatment and reconciliation." Preston studied his children carefully. "And how do you feel about that?" "Conflicted," Camden admitted. "She caused immeasurable harm, but she's still our mother. We thought maybe now, after all this time, there could be some kind of forgiveness," Audrey added hesitantly. "Not forgetting, but moving forward." Preston walked to the window, considering his response carefully. When he turned back, his expression was resolute. "I understand your feelings. They're natural and speak to your capacity for compassion," he began. "But there's something you need to understand about true justice. It isn't about revenge or punishment. It's about natural consequences proportional to actions." "We know that," Camden said. "You've always taught us accountability." "Yes, but there's a deeper truth here," Preston continued. "Your mother spent 12 years systematically destroying my character, manipulating you into fearing me, draining our family's resources, and betraying every trust. When exposed, she showed no remorse, only anger at being caught. Even years later, she continued attempting to manipulate you against me. But she's ill now," Audrey protested softly. "And that's tragic. Truly." Preston's voice remained calm but unyielding. "But illness doesn't erase accountability. If she needs financial assistance, she should contact her parents, who enabled her behavior for years, or Nicholas, who funded her deception." Camden studied his father. "You really won't help her?" "Not even a little." "It's not about what I will or won't do," Preston clarified. "It's about maintaining the boundaries that protect us from toxic patterns. Your mother has never acknowledged the full extent of her actions or made genuine amends. Her reaching out now, when she needs something, follows the same manipulative pattern she's always employed." "So that's it?" Audrey asked. "No second chances?" Preston smiled gently at his daughter. "Second chances require earned trust and demonstrated change. Your mother has shown neither. I respect your compassion, but I won't participate in enabling her manipulation, even if the vehicle is now illness rather than false accusations." The twins exchanged glances, absorbing their father's perspective. "What would you have us do?" Camden finally asked. "That's entirely your decision," Preston replied. "You're adults now, capable of setting your own boundaries. If you choose to help her or reconcile, I'll respect that as your choice. I only ask that you protect yourselves emotionally and financially from repeating patterns." Later that evening, Preston received separate texts from both children. Audrey had decided to send Veronica information about Parkinson's support groups, but no financial assistance. Camden had declined contact entirely, citing her continued attempts to disparage Preston even in her request for help. Their independent decisions, reached without pressure from Preston, confirmed that his years of honest parenting, never disparaging Veronica, but never shielding them from truth, had equipped them to recognize manipulation and establish healthy boundaries. 3 months later, Preston received notification that Montgomery Durant had died suddenly of a heart attack. The funeral would be held at St. Mary's Cathedral that weekend. Preston attended out of respect for his children's relationship with their grandfather, maintaining the dignified distance he had established years earlier. After the service, Elaine approached him tentatively. "Preston, I want to thank you for coming. It would have meant a lot to Montgomery." "I'm here for Audrey and Camden," Preston replied simply. Elaine nodded in understanding. "Montgomery left letters for all of you. He'd been writing them for years, apparently, coming to terms with our role in Veronica's deception." Preston accepted the sealed envelope with his name without comment. Later, alone in his study, he read Montgomery's final communication, a full acknowledgement of his failure to question his daughter's claims and an expression of profound regret for the years of injustice Preston endured. The letter concluded, "I never earned back your trust, and rightfully so. True justice requires full acceptance of consequences. I go to my grave knowing I failed as a father to Veronica by enabling her worst impulses, and failed as a father-in-law to you by believing the worst without evidence. My only consolation is that you proved to be the father my grandchildren needed, uncompromising in truth, unflinching in the face of injustice." Preston placed the letter in his safe alongside the documentation of Veronica's deception, not as a memento of pain, but as testament to the importance of standing firm when truth and justice are at stake. The following spring, as Preston prepared for Audrey and Camden's 20th birthday celebration, he received an unexpected email from Nicholas Castillo. "Preston, I've finally fully understood the magnitude of what Veronica did to you, having experienced a fraction of it myself these past years. I want to apologize for my role in enabling her deception and offer any assistance you might need in ensuring she never harms your family again. She's attempting to reconnect with your children using her health condition as leverage. I thought you should know. Nicholas." Preston forwarded the email to Audrey and Camden without comment, trusting them to make their own informed decisions. Both responded that they had already declined Veronica's recent overtures, recognizing the pattern of manipulation. That evening, celebrating with his children and their closest friends, Preston felt a sense of completion. The architects of his 12-year nightmare had each faced consequences proportional to their actions, not through vengeance, but through the natural outcomes of truth exposed and boundaries maintained. To resilience, Preston toasted, raising his glass to his children, and to uncompromising truth. "And to you, Dad," Camden added, "for showing us that justice doesn't require forgiveness when no amends are made. For teaching us that standing firm isn't the same as being bitter," Audrey continued. "It's about honoring your own worth." Preston studied his children's faces, strong, perceptive, and unburdened by the manipulative patterns that might have claimed them had he not fought so relentlessly for their future. In that moment, he knew with absolute certainty that his refusal to forgive the unrepentant had been his greatest gift to them, a legacy of truth, accountability, and unwavering self-respect that would protect them long after he was gone. The 12-year nightmare had ultimately forged something unbreakable in all of them, an unyielding resolution that no false narrative, however convincing, could ever again distort their reality. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.